In our never-ending quest to find all the fun things and facts in the Guild Wars universe, we're once again talking about animal-specific facts. I guess we're scraping the bottom of the barrel here, but I have a feeling I've said this for every video after the first, so we will just continue scraping. Hello everyone, I'm Morali, and today we'll take a look at some more interesting animal facts and Easter eggs. As this is part 4, I highly recommend parts 1 through 3 if you haven't already watched them, and if you're interested in more fun things like this, perhaps you could consider subscribing to the channel, as this would help me out a lot. I appreciate it. With all that said, let's just get right into it. Alright, so we're starting off light with this one. Out in Queensdale, at the Eastern Divinity Dam, there is a river drake hatchling. Nothing too crazy about that, but what's interesting is that he's actually friendly. As far as I know, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I don't think there are any other friendly river drake hatchlings anywhere in the game. He also doesn't really do anything, he just swims around the small lake and attacks ambient creatures he gets close to. I'm curious to know why he was added in the first place. Perhaps it had something to do with Will Collins, who's someone I talked about in a recent short. Staying in Queensdale though, we venture back across Shaymore to the Western Divinity Dam. Up on one of the higher platforms, you can actually see a black cat looking across the fields of Shaymore. This particular cat, like others we have discussed in the series before, cannot be targeted in any way. The most interesting part, however, is that it uses a unique model that differs from other cats like it. Within the stronghold of Ebonhawk, you can find a graveyard. While almost all of the characters are either a reference to Guild Wars 1 or other media, two of them stand out more than the rest when considering we're talking about animals. First up, we have Professor Yakkington's grave. For anyone that played Guild Wars 1, that name should definitely ring a bell. He was the trusted Dolyak companion of Nicholas Sanford, a character that traveled around Tyria and would exchange certain items every week in new locations for gifts, which could hold some pretty rare weapons and other items. Their graves are right next to each other, and it seems that they have died together, which is probably the most amazing part of it all. I speak in the past tense, but if you load up Guild Wars 1, you can still find them hanging out, asking for various items even now. The other grave that is interesting though is that of Thyst, which has two charmable animal companions next to it. This grave is in reference to a member of the Guild Wars wiki team that went by the name Wynthyst, who unfortunately passed away in 2014. She apparently was an avid animal lover, and even has an NPC named after her in the Guild Wars 1 menagerie. There is a memorial page in honor of her on the wiki, which explains her story a little and has some amazing words from the community in her memory. I'll leave a link in the description so you guys can check that out and perhaps pay your respects as well. Next up, let's go to Divinity's Reach and check on a very particular wolf. In the Plaza of Melandru, you can find a small zoo by the name of Hadron's Menagerie, which holds animals from all across Tyria. There, you can find a red wolf veteran. The model it uses is just a regular wolf model, and it's actually not a veteran rank either, but it is the only known red wolf in the entire game, as of right now at least. Perhaps, if we venture further out, we could come across them in some other regions that we as the commander have not yet gone to. I could perhaps see them make an occurrence in the Woodland Cascades, or maybe even some of the places further out east past the Blaze Ridge Mountains. In Mount Maelstrom, in the swampy area of Merkvale, you can find an unsuspicious rabbit on a bridge. It's a regular ambient rabbit, but it does have this strange name attached to it, Unsuspicious. It might be a reference to the story step that takes place right here at this bridge that deals with that weird risen Mesmer. There's also an event that deals with something similar where a Mesmer tricks a group of pack members. Perhaps it's a hint at some larger plot, who knows? Next up, we have something that I've never really noticed before, but the juvenile Ibogas that you can get as a pet in the Path of Fire expansion have a special revive animation. It's a known animation that other Serpentine models share. When they revive their owner, they stretch their bodies up in the air while looking up and flailing their two tongues. This makes me wish we had unique animations for all pets, since having them just run over to someone and standing over them is kind of boring. So, in the village of Smokestead, at the wall right where you start the game when you first load into the tutorial section of the char, you can walk up the metal platforms to find a rat named Whiskers. Next to him is an engineer that talks to him and asks him a number of technical questions. I remember when you could have Jahai rats as a pet in Guild Wars 1, definitely one of the more unique pets to have. Now for the cruel people in the crowd. In Lion's Arch, on the Captain Theo Ashford Memorial Bridge, you can find Tom and his dog. Funny thing is, you can tame his Drakehound and keep him for yourself. Tom will cry in response to this. Tom's cat will then spawn, which is actually a lynx. And once again, this pet is also charmable, which then again will have Tom crying. Poor Tom. Speaking of Drakehounds, if you zoom in on the collar of any Drakehound, you can make out the letters CAT. It could be an acronym for something, or this could mean that dogs are truly ruled by cats, and we just don't know about it. We all know how much ArenaNet loves their cats. We venture to Timberline Falls. Here, Kiriel Rock is a small little island, home to a bunch of crabs. There is a hero challenge and a couple of events involving the crabs on this island. But if you look closely, you can actually see that the small ambient crabs run laps around the small island. It's easy to miss since those ambient creatures seem very insignificant, but they add a certain depth to the game. This one is something I've talked about before many times. The spirits of the wild are really interesting beings in the world of Tyria. We know of the major spirits, but if you ask certain NPCs in Guild Wars 2, they will tell you that every species of creature has a corresponding spirit that embodies the virtues and vices of those animals. To that effect, you can find an interesting couple of characters out in the Flatwater Causeway and Sparkfly Fen, which talk about a very specific spirit, the spirit of frog. They don't go into detail, but just the implication that there are spirits for every creature out there is amazing. Could the spirit of frog perhaps be Zintel, the sun god that the High Lake worship? There are many possibilities to this theory, and this has me excited for a more High Lake-centric story we could see in the future. Back in Lion's Arch though, you can find Buddy, a giant rat that has taken a liking to one of the children there. It will follow the child to his mother, and the mother in turn will chase Buddy away with a broom. It's a funny interaction, but what's interesting here is that Buddy is actually rather large for a regular rat. Remember the Jahai rats I mentioned earlier? These are larger than regular rats. The implication here is that Buddy is a Jahai rat and was a stowaway on one of the ships that came from Elona with refugees. This next one is probably not well known at all, since the map it can be found on does not get explored too much these days. But in Thunderhead Peaks, up on the Howling Cliffs, you can encounter a friendly but skittish rabbit. If you follow this rabbit all the way down the cliff, it will turn into a champion jackalope. This jackalope is a force to be reckoned with. If you choose to go fight it, beware of its watermelon bombs that can knock you back. This next one is a little trickier to achieve. In the Cliffside Fractal, if you have the Mistlock Singularity and you jump down from one of the upper scaffolding to one of the scaffolding down below that's set off to the side a little bit, you can come across Arnold the Llama inside one of the ruins. If you dance in front of him, he will dance with you. Apparently, he was named after Benjamin Arnold, a developer on the Fractals team during the spring 2016 quarterly update revamp of the Fractal. Llamas are like ArenaNet's second favorite animal, right after cats. This one is actually pretty new, since it was released with Secrets of the Obscure. In the new Wizard's Tower map, there are a bunch of small dioramas in the alcoves on the inside of the outer wall. For the animal lovers, there is a small alcove with a bunch of cats just hanging out. Obviously, ArenaNet had to add something with cats for this expansion too. Alright, well that would be all for round 4 of Animal Facts. Like I said earlier, I can't really believe that I have 4 parts to the series so far, but I'm sure with future releases there will be plenty more to talk about in the future. I really enjoy the little details and Easter eggs ArenaNet likes to add to all their maps. It makes it truly enjoyable just exploring all the different nooks and crannies of the Guild Wars world. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later. Bye guys!